Welcome to Rural Strong, where we talk real challenges and bold solutions in rural economic development. I'm your host, Joe Barker. Let's get into it. Welcome to Rural Strong. This is your podcast host, Joe Barker, broadcasting from the Southwest Tennessee Development District podcast studio in beautiful downtown Jackson, Tennessee. And our regular monthly guest, as I hope our listeners are accustomed to now, are Becky McCrae and Deb Brown. Now, we have this recording today to be played at the time you're listening, but Becky's a little under the weather, and we wish her the best. But we've got the dynamic Deb Brown with us today, and she's got a big job. She's got to do her job and Becky's job, and all I've got to do is sit here and ask questions and listen. So, Deb, welcome to Rural Strong.
Good day, Joe. Thanks for having me, and happy to be here. Absolutely.
Well, it's always great to have you ladies with us, and because you've got experience and you've got a lot of great nuggets of wisdom for our listening audience. And our subject today is going to be small business support. And small businesses are the lifeblood of our rural communities, and they are so important, and Deb may be the most overlooked group in every one of our communities for whatever reason, but small businesses deserve our attention.
Absolutely. They deserve our attention, and they deserve our love, too. It's about time we did better at supporting our small businesses, don't you think?
Well, absolutely, and you know, the bigger, what we call the big box stores. I mean, they have their place, and they offer a great variety. But these small businesses, Deb, are the ones that support our charities, support our civic groups, serve on our city council, serve on our county commission. They're really the leaders in our community, and I think sometimes, just by nature of who they are very independent people, and they don't work together as a group. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, that's changing. Yeah, I've seen it be that way, but I think our small businesses are starting to understand what it means to provide an experience and provide that local feeling to the shoppers. And in order to do that, you have to work together. So, yeah, some towns don't, but we're starting to see a little bit of change in that because they realize, you know, you mentioned discount chains, right? And those are not the people that are buying the Little League T-shirts for their community, right? Where our small businesses are. But if they want those people to shop in their business, you see, it's a one hand washes the other kind of thing. Shopping online, we talked about that a minute ago. Why don't you just start local? That's my thought. Why don't you just start local? You can pick up the telephone, you can call, hey, do you have this? Or do you know somebody that does? Or the small business, let's flip it a little bit. The small business could try something a little bit different. Now, Becky did it with Shop Small Saturday in her town in Alba. She went with her camera and found something surprising in every single store that she had no idea was in that store. Waynoka does it. They call it Where Is It in Waynoka Wednesdays. That's in Oklahoma as well. They post a few photos of a local business. They feature things people might not know they have. The grocery store, they posted pictures of the gift wrap, the tools, the markers and pins, auto supplies like oil. Well, you get the idea. Things that you wouldn't assume a grocery store would have. So you can, one person can start that kind of project, whether it's the individual small business or a fan of theirs or a volunteer somewhere. Just go take pictures and post them. You're leading the way to that new cooperation that we just talked about, gathering your crowd and building those connections with people, even as you're taking small steps. And you and I both know those small steps matter. They build up to bigger things.
Absolutely.
So toot your horn.
There
That's
you
the
go.
other thing.
There you go. There you go. I know that you and Becky through the years have done a lot of surveys in rural communities to find out, what their challenges are, what's important to them. And I know that in your surveys, you found out that small business support is one of the challenges that a lot of local communities face.
Yeah, it's one of the latest trends that we found on the Survey of Rural Challenges, and we've been doing it for 10 years biannually. So there's been 5 of them, and we just did a huge report on that last year. And small businesses don't feel supported. We think we're supporting them. What we're finding, there are some things that economic developers can do to combat that struggle. And if you don't mind, I'd like to talk about that a little bit.
Go for it, girl.
All right. So this is where your economic developers and other officials can really be helpful. Start by making better use of the buildings that you do have that are in decent shape. Perhaps offer an incubator program for entrepreneurs that have good ideas and want to start. Or do a shared space. Put 6 little businesses in an empty building and help support that. I'm going to talk about incentives because that's crazy important. Code compliance, enforcement, tax credits, rebates, waivers, all of that can be useful to the businesses already on the ground. Offer incentives, zoning reforms, subsidies, streamlined regulation, shared resources, even provider training. We're quick as a community to look for that big manufacturer and offer them no taxes for 10 years and all other kinds of incentives. What if you started with your local businesses first? I got a list of action steps. You could funnel financial resources just to improve housing or childcare, downtown, commercial buildings. Consider, for the economic developers, classifying these to qualify for economic development funding. Or move your funding from those lower valued services like business plan assistance or pitch competitions or small business lending funds. Those 3 things rural people told us not at the top of their priority list. So take some of that funding and funnel it back into supporting small businesses. Collaborate, work with other organizations and collaborate so your clients across multiple paths bring them to resources. So instead of waiting for somebody to come to you for resources, go to them. Bring your small businesses to the resources. Let them know what's there. You could hold online meetings to overcome that geographical distance and hold them at hours that small business owners and entrepreneurs can attend. Don't hold them at noon. The restaurants are busy and so are the stores. You can record them as well and share the recording. So when you're trying to work with a group of small businesses, don't do it between 9 and 5. Have it at breakfast or have it at 6:30 at night. That would mean working a little differently. I know. You could support more of the low investment testing opportunities, things like pop-ups, temporary permits, shared retail space, downtown kiosk, pilot projects. Be willing to set aside a few rules and regulations to test things out and give it a try. And keep your local owners, this is really important, keep your local owners in the spotlight by inviting them to your council meetings. Put them on the agenda. Have them give regular updates. What's going on with the businesses downtown? Tell us your story. What kind of success have you had? Start spreading those stories to major channels, the city channels, the Main Street groups, chambers, residents. You want people to see innovation is already here and happening. If we don't tell our stories, and by stories, our successes, Joe, even failures. If you're doing small step, failure isn't failure. It's just data. It's a new thing to learn on how to overcome. I got excited there, didn't I?
You did. Do you have one of those blood pressure machines on you anywhere?
I do.
Okay, you might ought to check it, Deb.
I do. You know, I like to talk about incentives and code enforcement and changing codes when we talk about empty buildings downtown and how can we effectively use those things to make a difference. It's the same way. How can we effectively use those tools we already have, those resources we already have, but how can we use them to support the businesses we also already have?
And I think, Deb, my family owned a small business, and I actually worked in that small business for 20 years right after I got out of college. And I don't think probably the general public recognizes all the things that a small business owner must do. I told a group actually earlier today that I didn't realize I was the one that had to be there first thing in the morning to unlock the door, and I had to be the last one there at night to lock the door, and then I had to sweep the floor, and then I was also the marketing person, and I was the financial person, and so you wear all these hats, and you have to have a passion to be a small business owner. That's just all there is to it, because there's a lot goes into it. And I guess I'm leading into the fact that do you think that the general public in a community realizes how important it is to shop local as far as funding the things that are really important in that community from the revenue that comes into those small local businesses?
No, I don't believe the regular folks in your community know that. But I frankly don't think some of the officials and your economic developers realize that too. I'm in small businesses a lot when I'm doing on-site visits, and I can't tell you the number of times people have told me when I ask, your economic developer, they say, well, yeah, he comes in here or she comes in here, but they never buy anything. What's the point of them coming in to ask me how many employees I have every month? We need them to shop here a little bit too. And we don't even think about that when we're doing our job, when we're visiting somewhere, working with a client. Spend some of your money there too. Shop local. And local doesn't have to mean buy everything local, because everything usually isn't available in a rural community. But a lot more than what you think is available. And start local. Support your small business.
Well, and I know states' tax structures are very different, and in the state of Tennessee, we're very much a sales tax-driven state with both our state government and local government. And sales tax in Tennessee is what you call a situs-based tax, so that, if you live in a municipality and you buy a product inside that municipality, that sales tax stays there, the local portion of it. And so that's the reason, we all do a lot of traveling, and sometimes in rural communities there's retail hubs that are not far from us, and we may even work in one of those communities that's a retail hub. And there's lots of things that we could buy locally, but we will stop and buy, as we say, on the way home. And when you do that, you're not getting a product any differently than you could get locally, but what you're doing is supporting their tax structure and not your own tax structure. I don't think there's a very good educational process that is done by local elected officials or the chambers or whoever needs to be doing this about the importance of buying local, Deb.
Well, and let's educate our residents too, and talk about where that tax fund is going and how much of that money actually leaves, and you only get to keep a small percentage for your local community. And half of that in Tennessee, like you told me, goes for education. So really a lot of it isn't staying there. It's important then to spend more time in your community, But what if, as a small business owner, what if we could figure out how to better serve those clients too? You know, you're coming home from work. You can send me a text at my small business and say, Deb, I need to pick up diapers for my 3-year-old. Can you meet me by the door? And if I'm open, I'm going to say, absolutely. Give me your credit card number. Let me run it for you. Those are experiences. Those are services that we're probably already doing, but we don't think to tell people that we can do that. Stay open an hour later. People get off work at 5 and they're not home till 5:30, 5:45. Maybe you start a little bit later and stay open a little bit longer. Or maybe you only try it for one night. Maybe every Thursday is the night that stores stay open later. There's a city in Iowa, Belle Plaine, Iowa. And the mayor said, if we want our businesses to do this, we're going to have to do it too. City Hall will be open late every Thursday. So those of you that have business you need to do at City Hall, you don't have to take a day off of work to do it. That's a heck of a thing, you know?
Well, you know, I grew up and lived most of my life in a smaller rural community, and you know, when you do that and you have children, there's fundraisers and all these things, and you've got youth sports, and you look at your local community to support those kinds of activities, and it wasn't funny, but as I look back, I would go into some of the bigger operations in our community that were not locally owned, and you would ask for a donation of some kind, and invariably the answer would be, man, I'd love to do this. We'll have to run it through our corporate office. And that was code for don't come back and bother me again. And that local business owner, Deb, may be having a little bit of struggle financially that month, but I guarantee you, whatever they can do, they'll write you a check. And that's one reason I just feel so strongly about small businesses in our communities.
Yeah. Yeah, they really are a huge support to us and things that matter locally, and that's just really important. Another thing, it's really storming here. My apologies. I got distracted by thunder there for a minute.
Well, you know, my wife tells me I can't hear it thunder, so I've not heard anything. Really, I've just sort of tuned out, but I haven't heard anything, Deb.
It's coming for you, Joe. So anyway, some of the things that that local businesses can do to help bring more people in. Say, for example, there's a new hardware store in town and they sell chalk paint. And a lot of us have heard of chalk paint. I have no idea how to use it. But I would go to a demonstration of how to use that chalk paint at that hardware store. Probably end up buying some too while I was there. So create these experiences to get people in your store. Frankly, just because you have a store doesn't mean I have to shop there. I do want to support you as a local business, absolutely. But, you know, that's a two-way street as well.
You know, I know one thing, Deb, that in our local community, and you know, not that it was an every week thing, but periodically they would do in our downtown area a business after hours type where the businesses stayed open later. People could come downtown, they could stroll down Main Street, they can go in all the stores and do what you were talking about, actually take some time to look and see what these folks, what products they've got to sell, no telling what you might find in some of these smaller stores. But I thought that worked real well because it gave people an opportunity after work that those people that did not work in that small town had to go off somewhere could actually come downtown and see what was being offered that they could buy locally.
Absolutely. And you know what, Joe? Maybe it's not 5 days a week. Maybe it's not even one day a week. Maybe you start even smaller and you do that kind of business after hours once a month.
You're absolutely.
Be consistent. Maybe it's the first Tuesday, whatever. You know your community. Go stand out on the street at 5:30 and see how many people are walking downtown. You'll figure it out, right? And do that when people are have the ability to come back to town, and make a big deal of it. I mean, don't just put a sign on the door that says we're going to be open every first Tuesday of the month. Make it a party. Put it up on social media. Get other people, your neighbors, your two neighbors involved to do it with you. You're a chamber member, ask for their support. Most chambers are really good at putting events together, and this actually could be an event. Could be a whole lot of fun.
Well, and let's talk about that, because I know you consult with a lot of communities, and that local economic developer, where it's a standalone economic developer, or they just have a chamber where it's all under one umbrella, what are some of the steps that you think they could do that would actually help small businesses?
Oh, Lord. Quite a lot of things. For example, if you're doing trainings, don't pull people. You want the SBDC to come in about taxes for online shipping. I'm just making that up. Don't do it at noon, and don't have them lecture. Make it something a little more informal. Give me more of a buffet kind of thing. One of my favorite things from Webster City, Iowa that I love, we worked this event called Entrebash. So it's where entrepreneurs, both current ones and possible entrepreneurs, showed up at the golf course. I think it was at 5 o'clock at night, went till 8. And instead of sitting for a bunch of lectures from a lawyer, from the CPA, from all those people that matter to small businesses, they had round tables. And at that table, one was a lawyer, one was a social media person at another table, one was the SBDC. So you went to the table that you needed some information from, or that you needed a little bit of advice from. No more lectures. You just got to ask the questions you needed answers to, and not sit through a whole presentation that you didn't need all that information at that time. So how can, as an economic developer, do that kind of thing? How can you be more helpful to the small businesses? It's got to start with, for God's sakes, go talk to them and ask them what they need. Don't assume that you know, because you really don't. And the only way you find out is by asking.
Well, you know, Deb, I recently attended an event in a rural county, not far from where our office is, where they recognized small businesses, and they gave all those that attended a plaque that showed their appreciation to them. But to me, one of the most important things of that event was it actually was a breakfast, and these people sat around and you could see them networking with each other. And, you know, coming from a small business background myself, you know, small business owners have a language all themselves, and they have the same challenges primarily. And I remember those days that I was in business that it was just good sometimes to learn that other people were experiencing the same challenges that I did.
And have some answers to your challenges.
Absolutely.
I know in Brownsville, Texas, there's a group of business owners that get together pretty regularly after hours, and they get to see each other's back room and ask questions and talk about things like marketing or supply chain questions, all of those kind of things that is their language. And they're able to, first of all, collaborate. Think about how magical that is. But they're also able to get their questions answered and try some new ideas, because you have a group of people talking about it, not just one person trying to figure it out, for God's sakes, using AI. Get out there and talk to people. It's important.
Do you have maybe some examples, Deb, of where you've seen that small businesses in a community actually, from a collaboration standpoint, maybe they do marketing together because, when a group goes together, it spreads the cost around, makes it cheaper for everyone. Have you seen any examples of that in any of the communities you work in?
Yes. I mean, marketing is always the first thing we talk about. If you're doing a ladies' night out event in your community, now this is where they do it in Webster City, they come together and sit down and figure out what kind of marketing do we want to do, first of all. Do we want to do print? Do we want to do radio? Do we want to do TV? Do we want to do social media? And they work together as retailers in the downtown area to figure out what it is they want to do. Usually the chamber will throw in some money towards that marketing effort. That's why you pay dues. That's important to have your chamber support you, right? And now they've spread out their reach further than if just they were doing it individually on their own. Everybody's got an ad in the paper, right? Well, what if you put a full page ad in the paper that lists everybody? I mean, think about the different ways. That looks so much more impressive than a small 2x2 ad in the corner is. The same thing with buying time on radio or TV. It's a little more expensive. So it makes sense to come together and collaborate.
And in just a couple of minutes we've got left, Deb, I want to hear your thoughts on, particularly in rural communities, about businesses that are unique in what they sell or what they do. Because to me, yes, it is, and I'm just going to use Walmart as an example. You stop at Walmart and you can buy all these products and buy your groceries and do the whole thing before you leave. But I think in rural communities, uniqueness on products that you actually cannot buy in some of these stores is one of the keys to being successful.
The handcrafted items, those things that are handmade, the artistic paintings and sculptures and all those kind of things, they really are one-offs. They're not duplicated. And this is something a small town can do. Retail business could partner with an artist. You've got a blank wall. Let me display your artwork. Even your local photographer who works out of their home, set up some of those photos in the insurance agent's office. Plenty of wall space. And you're doing that cross-pollination. So figuring out how to work with each other instead of against each other is important. Pop-ups. This is where I love pop-ups. The next night you have market nights or you have a local after-hours thing. Add a few pop-ups in there. Find the guy that's making fishing lures in the wintertime and wants to sell them in the summertime and get him into a pop-up. Do you know how many people are going to come to see just that guy? Yeah, they did that in Tionesta, Pennsylvania. This is why I know it. They use garden sheds for small businesses there. Put them in a semicircle. What a wonderful story. They've been doing it 10 years now. And one of them is a guy that makes fishing lures in the winter and sells them in the summer when they're open, May to October. I'm not even sure he's there to sell. I think he's there to talk to other fishermen. You know how that goes, right?
Absolutely.
But it's an experience. Again, he's created an experience. Local woodworkers almost always have things that they've made and wouldn't mind being able to set up and make a few extra dollars. In a rural community, $100, $200 extra a month, that's groceries on your table. It makes a difference. And you can try these ideas out in pop-ups. Will it ever turn into a full-fledged business? Maybe. But if it doesn't, who cares? This person's still getting exposure and is bringing people into your community to look for these special things that you just can't find in a Walmart.
Well, there's just so many challenges out there for small businesses, but also great opportunities if we just
Indeed.
Open our minds a little bit. Before we leave, Deb, tell our listeners out there if they want to get in touch with you or tell them about Save Your Town. How do they find Deb Brown and Becky McCrae?
Well, start at our website is SaveYour, SAVEYOUR, Town, Town. There's no .com anywhere near it. If you're not already receiving our weekly email free newsletter, sign up for it. It's real simple. Savior.town/sign up. And sign up to get our free newsletter. We address real challenges and some solutions that we've seen and that we know about, and we tell a lot of stories. So, and it's all about staying in the conversation and being positive and loving where you live. That's rural for me. To reach either one of us, Deb at Savior.town or Becky at Savior.town. We answer our emails ourselves.
Well, thank you, Deb. Always a pleasure to talk to you and get your take on what's going on in the world today. And I look forward to the next time we're together.
I do too. Thank you, Joe, very much. Have a good week.
Thank you. Thanks for joining us on Rural Strong. If you found this helpful, share it and follow the show for more insights from rural leaders making a real difference. Until next time, stay rural strong.